Wellness Day everyone! So I'm teacher Marcy Reyes from Cavite National High School. So I'm going to discuss the first lesson from grade 8 module. Lesson 1 is all about disease and infection. Our objectives for this lesson, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss the nature of infection and disease, to explain the three levels of prevention to promote health and prevent disease, and number 3, demonstrate correct practices in the prevention of communicable disease. Infection refers to the abnormal invasion and successful multiplication of disease-causing microorganisms called pathogens in the body. This causes disruption and damage to body tissues or organs. So there are 4 major types of pathogens or pathogenic microorganisms. Number 1, bacteria, 2, viruses, 3, fungi, and 4, parasites. Bacteria are small one-celled living microorganisms found in soil, food, animals, and insects. Bacteria can grow and multiply using the nutrients found in its environment. Some examples of bacteria infection are tuberculosis, leptospirosis, and urinary tract infection or UTI. Viruses are very tiny microorganisms that are only able to multiply inside a living cell. Some examples of viral infections are common colds, flu, measles or tigdas, dengue fever, hepatitis, and coronavirus. Fungi are multi-celled microorganisms that cannot survive in soil, water, or air. They need a living organism, like plants or animals, to get enough nutrition. Yeast, mold, and mildew are part of this group. An example of fungal infection is athlete's foot, recognized by smelly and itchy rash in between the toes. Next is parasites, are organisms that need a living body to reproduce, snatching nutrients for its own growth. Some examples of parasitic infections are ascaris, hookworms, and roundworms, commonly seen in the intestines. Since microorganisms are not easily seen by the naked eye, they can easily spread without our knowledge. Communicable is the word used to describe diseases that are easily transferred from one person to another. Microorganisms can be transferred through air, water, soil, blood, and other body fluids. One example of a communicable disease is tuberculosis. It is a disease of respiratory system pertaining to the lungs, wherein the person becomes very thin and experiences night sweats and frequent coughing. When that person coughs, the droplets containing the virus can be inhaled by someone else. Another example is COVID-19, caused by the coronavirus that emerged in 2019 and led to a worldwide pandemic. Scientists are learning more and more about this virus, and as of now, they know that it spread through droplets and particles released into the air when an infected person exhales, talks, laughs, coughs, or sneezes. Diseases are recognized through signs and symptoms. Signs are physical changes seen by an individual, and the examiner, like a doctor, they can be directly observed and measured. For example, a doctor can spot paleness of lips. A thermometer can measure the degree of fever. High blood pressure can be measured using a sphygmomanometer or blood pressure monitor. Symptoms are changes in the body felt by an individual. They are more difficult to measure or observe. Examples are nausea, pain, and loss of appetite. These are important practices that can prevent the spread of microorganisms. Proper food preparation, proper hand washing, getting vaccinated. These are also important practices to prevent the spread of microorganisms. Coughing into a tissue or sleeve, cleaning frequently used surfaces, and not sharing personal items like hair brushes and toothbrushes. Diseases do not just suddenly happen. They develop in stages. Although not all stages are apparent and easily recognizable, knowing the stages makes it easier to understand the behavior of disease. It allows medical professionals to provide the proper treatment and medication. The first stage is incubation. This period refers to the initial invasion of the pathogen into the body. Pathogen is the microorganism that carries the disease. During the incubation period, the pathogen starts to multiply. However, the person is still unaware of the disease. The next stage is prodroma. During this period, the pathogen continues to multiply. The person begins to experience signs and symptoms of the disease. The third stage is the illness stage, when signs and symptoms are already obvious and severe. In the decline stage, the number of pathogens starts to decrease and the signs and symptoms begin to wane. However, because the immune system was greatly weakened by the pathogen, the person becomes susceptible to other kinds of infection. In the convalescent stage, the body begins to recover and eventually returns to its normal functions. The red line on this graph represents the number of pathogens in the body. The blue line represents the severity of signs and symptoms of a disease. As you can see, both increase over time from incubation to the illness stage and begin to decrease in the decline stage. As the number of pathogens inside the body increase, the red line, so does the severity of signs and symptoms of a disease, the blue line. Developing these healthy habits can help to maintain the normal function of your immune system and protect you from disease. Choose nutritious and varied options. Healthy teenagers need to eat a nutritious and varied diet because it contains all the essential nutrients needed to give energy, support growth, maintain health, and recover from illness. Choose to drink water and milk. Water helps replace the lost fluids in our body. Drinking water helps regulate the different processes of our body, especially when we are sick. Fortified milk has calcium and vitamin D for normal bones and teeth. It also has nutrients like iron, zinc, and vitamin C that may contribute to the normal function of the immune system. Many infectious diseases are contagious during the 5 stages of disease. Contagious means a sick person can spread infection to other people from the time of incubation until convalescence. Diseases can cause morbidity and mortality. Morbidity refers to the state of being sick or ill, while mortality is related to death or the risk of death. In 2014, 5 of our 10 leading causes of morbidity were infectious in origin, namely acute respiratory infection, acute lower respiratory tract infection, influenza, tuberculosis or the respiratory, and tuberculosis other forms. In 2020, 3 of the 10 leading causes of death were infectious in nature. Can you identify them in this list? This information implies that infectious diseases continue to be a health concern in the Philippines. They say that prevention is better than cure. Prevention is about avoiding disease before it happens or avoiding further complications of an existing disease. When we talk about prevention of disease, there are 3 levels: primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. Primary prevention includes measures that prevent the onset of disease. The goal is to lower your chances of getting the disease in the first place. Examples of primary preventions are getting immunization shots, getting regular exercise, eating a nutritious diet, having annual checkups with a doctor. Which of these primary prevention methods are you practicing? Secondary prevention includes measures that lead to early diagnosis and prompt treatment of a disease. The goal is early detection or screening so a disease can be treated before it even shows very clear and severe signs and symptoms. Examples are Laboratory screening for fasting blood sugar. Breast self-examination. Pap smear test. What other secondary prevention methods are you familiar with? Tertiary prevention aims to re-educate and rehabilitate a person after experiencing a disease. The goal is to prevent complications in the future. For example, diet therapy for a diabetic patient, physical therapy for rehabilitation of a stroke patient. Do you know of someone who has gone through tertiary prevention? These two healthy habits are examples of primary prevention. By developing these habits, you lower your chances of getting disease in the first place. Can you explain these habits in your own words? Record a video of yourself explaining these habits and why they are important. You may share the video with your friends, teacher, or on your social media account. Thank you for listening. See you again in our lesson 2.